You're on, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you fine.
All right, cool. I think we're good.
Good. So, welcome everybody who's on live and watching at a replay date later. My name's John Pichata, and I've got with me a friend of mine, Dave Lohman, who I'm really excited to talk to. Dave, how you doing? How's California?
California's great, man. I mean, it's just like a perfect, not too hot, not too cold. It's the stereotypical California dream. So,
Man, it looks fantastic there.
yeah, it's nice.
And you're in San Luis Obispo? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, San Luis Obispo. They headed down to LA this weekend, so
Nice.
started to get a little early jump on the road trip.
Nice. That's great. So, Dave, I thought I'd kick us off with a quote that I think really kind of hits the target for what we could talk about here. So it's this thought here: the only people in the world who can change things are those who can sell ideas.
Absolutely.
Let me say that again. The only people in the world who can change things are those who can sell ideas. So I know you work in marketing and copy and some more high level advanced stuff, but for our end, for our viewers, artists and entrepreneurs who are building careers, it's like they may or may not know this, but they're selling ideas. They're selling their songs, they're selling their events, their experiences to their audiences. So you coming from the marketing world and us coming from the music marketplace have one thing in common. It's like we're selling ideas, whether we know it or not.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's the biggest mistake people make is when they start selling their product and start selling their features. And it's like, yeah, it's the idea behind it. What is that big idea? You know?
yeah. Yeah. And we could talk about, copy and technical stuff, but I'd love to just strip away some of the gobbledygook and really make it actionable for those of us whose hands are dirty. Entrepreneurs who are doing it every day. And I know that's part of your DNA. So, yeah, let's jump in. I mean, at the end of the day, Dave, you do a lot of stuff, but if I were to boil it down, I think you just make things better, right? You focus things, you make them tighter, you bring things together, and you really put a point on things that I think is tricky for people who don't come from, the copy and the marketing world. So thanks for joining us, Dave. I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the problem, what do you see as the problem here as we're talking about, how to talk about yourself without always talking about yourself? How would you look at this problem?
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking because you have to really speak in the language of listening, right? And it's like, how do you do that verbally, right? So, people, it's very black and white. The way we think of it is like you're bragging or you don't want to talk about yourself, but there's that middle line, you got to figure out how to do that. And it's all about positioning, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, I think for artists and entrepreneurs, there's always, this really sticks in the craw of a lot of people. Some people get this naturally. Taylor Swift's great at it. Coheed and Cambria is great at it. They're just naturals. But for those of us who are mere mortals, and I think most of us are, it's like there's an ick factor to this.
Absolutely.
A lot of artists feel kind of, uncomfortable talking about themselves, but they know they have to talk about themselves. So how do you do it without sounding like you're bragging? Nowadays you can't really farm this out to PR. It has to be in your wheelhouse, So, so yeah, I mean, how do you go about thinking about this? What's your process of talking about yourself without feeling like you're bragging?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you got to do is you got to realize that like that word positioning is kind of a tricky one because it sounds like a simple thing, but what does it really mean? And you really want to put yourself in a position like if you know what you're going to be talking about, what kind of testimonials do you have to back it up? Because if someone else is saying it, that's an easy way to get around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then when then when you start talking about it, I mean, really just thinking about, we've all heard sell benefits, not features, but what does that mean? Like you said, what does it mean to make that actionable? Right. And it's just like, really, what is it, what you have or what you're giving, what does it do for people? And then so you become you're not talking so much about here's what I do as so much as here's what you get.
Yeah. Here's the experience you get from joining with me as an artist.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. So how do you go about when you talk about testimonials, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to use testimonials, and it's not just throwing 50 at the bottom of a landing page to show your credibility, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you can have somebody else actually saying it, like if it's a program like this, someone else saying it is great. But when you're talking, even if you just refer to like, oh, so and so said, I mean, that little thin barrier sometimes can make all the difference, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if it's somebody who has authority in the industry or the people you're around, they know who it is. It really helps if there's some sort of authority there.
Yeah. So social proof around who you are, what you're doing, why you're special, how you're different.
Yeah. And the person who's giving the testimonial too, if I just told you, Chad Smith said, it's like, who's that? That's a million people. Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love that. That's great, man. So, yeah, what else goes through your mind as you're thinking about this?
So it's kind of like, all right, so we'll start with a little marketing thing, and I'll tear it down to the real, stripping it down. So we all know that you're supposed to make a big promise, right? It's either a promise or a mechanism that you're selling. And what you're doing is you got to realize that in copywriting, it's all about persuasion, right? It's not so much as selling, it's persuading people. And you can't really convince somebody. Like if I tell you, hey, John, I'm going to talk you into buying me a cup of coffee today, you're never going to buy it. Or if I would have asked you, you'd buy me too, right? And so you want to what you want to do is you want to make that promise that they like. And then everything you're doing, you're not really trying to tell them they want it. You're just proving your promise, right? So in real life, what you're doing, it goes back to that same thing about the experience, like what they're getting. It's like you don't want to tell them so much like, oh, here's why I'm so great. You just want to talk about, hey, here's what I deliver, and here's everything that you're going to say about yourself. It's just going, oh no, that's to the experience, right? You're talking about pushing it towards that promise or that experience or whatever you're doing, whatever that idea is you're selling. You're really just trying to prove that the whole time. Then it doesn't come across like you're trying to convince them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So prove the promise, follow through on what you're committing to.
Yeah. So just whatever idea you're selling. And I mean, then it comes back to what you said about kind of like making things better and tighter. It's really good. It's like that Steve Jobs quote where he's like, simple is harder than complex.
Right.
It takes a lot of time to do it, but once you do it, I think he said you can move mountains, but that's basically what it is. Just getting that clarity on that one thing, making it really simple, and then just making everything drive that way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And for a lot of artists, they may not even be familiar with the word copy.
Right.
I mean, copy kind of touches everything. And maybe there's a better word for copy, but it's like messaging or just something more natural for artists. But it really does it touches how you tour. It touches how you do digital social media. It touches how you sell product. It really, it's more than just marketing speak. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people say, well, that's like gobbledygook marketing stuff. How do you get that into your, kind of the tactical day in, day out part of maybe what an artist is dealing with on their end?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, artists, you guys are manipulating through emotion. I use the term manipulating, meaning you're trying to move people or change opinions or whatever the purpose of what you're doing is, and that's what it is. It's like the Gettysburg Address, right? I mean, that was copywriting, right? It was just an emotional plea based on all the the soldiers that had passed, and everyone was just making a big show out of mourning them. And he's like, well, we don't mourn them through death. We mourn them through living the life that they fought for, and just really taking that emotion. And so whenever you can make a point based off of the emotional appeal and really understanding the other person's feelings on it, right? The other person's emotions. So you really want to relate it. But that's really the essence of what it is that emotional appeal. Yeah.
And I noticed too, Dave, just in reading some of the things you've written, you approach things at a pretty high level, like archetypal. You wrote a love letter to entrepreneurs recently, where you really got face to face, toe to toe with entrepreneurs, and you really built. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, you really spoke the language of the entrepreneur and really built into them in some interesting ways. And you talked about war. You talked about being ashamed. You talked about your responsibility. You talked about fighting. You talked about not giving up. And those are all kind of, you know, I don't know if there's a better word, archetypal, but they're all kind of primal wants and needs, right? It's not right. The shit that people get tricked into thinking about. It's the stuff that you naturally think about, whether you know it or not. Right. You, I know you're a student of human nature. How do you, I mean, is that part of your thinking process, the high level archetypal?
Yeah, I think it's just really like always diving down to like what's the core reason, like just trying to go deeper. And it's not something that you just like sit down and you're like you think about it for half an hour. I mean, it's really like you like you said, studying human nature. Like the more you think about it, like you get in an argument with somebody and maybe you think you see their point, but you know, if you go and you start thinking about what they're going through in their life, you might be like, oh man, there's a deeper reason. And then you start putting those together. Oh, there's a deeper reason. There's always that deeper reason. And it always comes back down to, you know, like, cause we don't want to die, really. I mean, that's the reason we do anything. So, yeah.
Interesting. That's interesting, Dave. So you talk about the newest, not the best. And nobody wants to be number one. What is that? What can you talk about that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little bit boring when you're number one all the time, right? And besides that, like if you claim to be number one, you even if you have the proof, but first off, people are going to go like, well, you know, my buddy John, he's pretty good. I think he's number one, right? And then if you start going, well, I have this proof, now you're arguing, and no one's going to, you know, that's not a way to sell an idea, right? Yeah. It's overall, it's just it gets argumentative and it gets boring because like think about when the Yankees win the World Series every year, right? Like, you know, by that third year, it's just like, are you really even trying to watch the World Series? But when it's like, oh yeah, Toronto, the Blue Jays, they just beat them. Like the Blue Jays, like when do they ever, you know, like once every 20 years maybe. But then you get excited about it. It's new. It's got a curiosity element, and that curiosity is like the strongest, you know, compelling human nature desire that we have.
So it's like the Patriots, you know, when the Patriots always win or Tom Brady always wins, you kind of naturally root against him because you're rooting for the next yeah person.
And then when he went to Tampa Bay that first year, the Tampa Bay, you know, they were winning. Now all of a sudden everyone's rooting for him again because it's, you know, it's something new. Tom Brady in Tampa. It's, you know.
So. Yeah, I love that. So you call that the rule of being first?
Okay, so the rule of being first is it's similar. So like when you get to a market, if you're first, or if you're the first one to declare a word, like, you know, like some companies, they or brands, I should say, have a word that they claim that they're known by. No one can really knock that off. Even if someone else comes and they do it better now, it's like everyone always remembers that first, right? So if you want to be first in the marketplace, so if you have something that everyone else has, and you can think of an angle that's different, and then you can be known for that angle, people are going to remember that, right?
I love that. I love that. So if you're an artist and you're kind of defining, let me kind of bring you into our world because we've got artists who are kind of all over the globe and they're all kind of different in their own way. And they're defining how they're different, right? They're maybe they don't have 100% clarity on that, but maybe they're at 40%, 60% clarity on how they're different. How do you, when you talk about structuring benefits, how would that overlay onto an artist and what they're doing as an artist entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I mean, you got to know, are you going to be like, are you a real shows? Are you all about the live shows, or are you going to be like a studio artist? Like what is it that you really do? Where's the thing that you're best at? And especially today, people are realizing that it's not about getting better at the parts that you're weak at and being well-rounded. It's about standing out at the thing that you do best, right? That you're most comfortable and that people love about you. And then really, I mean, it's really up to the fans at that point. Like, what do they like about your shows? You know, like you should really be asking people, because that's where it comes from, is other people. So the more data you get on that, you know, like if you're getting feedback from fans and they love something, it could be something silly. You messed up one time at a show and you made a little event out of it now. Everyone can't wait till you break your D string or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, it might be something kind of silly like that, but if they get into it, you lean into it. And even if you think it's something that's like gimmicky, we'll use that gimmick to get the attention and then drop the real knowledge on them or the real meaning behind it that you want, like
Mm-hmm.
use it to your advantage. Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely lean into what people are thinking is the best benefit. So,
Yeah. So you're a big believer in strengths.
yeah, I mean, I'm actually a big believer in, like your power or your strength should be your number two, because then you always got it on reserve and you really learn to dial in that secondary skill or that secondary, powerful element. But yeah, definitely want to lean into what you're good at, especially if it's unique or if it's something that's getting people riled up, getting the reaction you want. Because at the end of the day, it's not even just about the songs or the music you bring; it's about the change you want to see, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And sometimes for some people it is in the music, that change, but a lot of times it's something that's more about what they want to see in the world or what they want to see in the industry, or maybe it's just a change they want to see in their family from bringing the success. Yeah. Whatever that change is that's important to you, use the other thing as the mechanism.
That's interesting. So not, you said something interesting a second ago. Not lead with your strengths, but lead with your number two.
Yeah,
you're kind of back up. So then you bank your slam dunk and use it appropriately when needed.
Right, exactly. Whether it's in a pinch or whether it's just like now they're not, you've thrown the curveball 8 times and now that fastball's at 92 or that fastball's looking like it's 97 all of a sudden, or it also really helps just with your brain, because you're naturally into your number one and you start kind of, it's kind of like when you're playing injured, so to speak, and you have to focus more. You have really good games, and you really start honing that number two. And then when you let that your strength rip, you haven't been thinking about it as fresh, and it's going to be the best.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So saving your strength for the slam dunk rather than leading with it normally out of the gate.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Pull back and you got to use that number two, and it's a solid number two, but you haven't been throwing it all game, so to speak. You haven't been using it. It's maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't, but if you have that power right there, it's always going to be your best one.
I love that. So who's doing this right? Who do you see, in the world, like getting this right? I mean, there's a lot of people kind of bragging and overselling and me. Who are people that you look to and say, you know what, here's a company or a person that is getting it right.
Does right.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like, sometimes I start to think it's Elon, and then he's not, he's always up and down. You never know with that guy. Yeah. But let's see. I like, so there's a copywriter named Robert Allen. He's a big e-com marketer, copywriter. I mean, he does a lot of the stuff right. I love listening to him. And Roy Furr. These are the copywriters, though. I'm trying to think like in the music industry.
Yeah.
Who does it right? Off the top of my head.
I mean, they don't have to be in the music industry. I'm just,
Yeah. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head who I'm liking, that everyone would know. But I know. Okay, so like for instance, even if you look at now, Google is kind of different, but some of the Google's copywriting, like when you go through their questionnaires, like trying to get to the ads like beforehand, the way that they position and phrase some of the things is very simple, but it's pretty powerful the way it draws you in. So I know like Google, when they're doing like just looking at example copywriting, it's like signing up for their ads was a good one. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just trying to think in the world today. My brain's just kind of in a different gear than that right now, but I'll definitely loop back around and answer.
Yeah.
That in a minute when it hits me.
And I mean, this permeates everything. So, for an artist who's doing an email newsletter to his social media, to his live streaming, what are some other ways that you can start to build some muscle around this in a natural way?
Yeah, I mean, social media is great when like if you know how to use social media for your intended target. Like, there's a lot of different methods and stuff, but it's when you really understand like what's the strength of the method, what are you really trying to do? And the best thing I say to do is really like form a hypothesis, right? Like, okay, I'm going to try to make this post, but my goal is, what's your specific goal with it? Are you trying to get a certain person to comment? Are you trying to get a certain type of feedback? Are you trying to get people to go to your group, whatever it may be? Really being specific and clear on what you're trying to do and what happens, you start to dial yourself in pretty well. And then email marketing is huge. Like I say always, if you can have a group and email marketing, I know a lot of people, that's a lot of work if you're a solopreneur, but being able to promote from the other platform, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
So you're talking about a group and your email list.
Yeah. So like if you're promoting, because like, all right, email list, the inbox is more crowded than ever, right? And you can kind of use that to your advantage because everybody wants to they want to stop you with their headline, right? Or with their subject line. Yeah. The subject line's there to get you to open it, right? Yeah. Not to stand out. So if you're promoting your email list all the time, there's always something in your email list that's happening, then you're promoting it. They're already looking for you when they get to the inbox, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of like doing that. Now, if you do that, and then from the, sorry, this motorcycle's going by right now.
Yeah, I love it. I heard it in the background.
Yeah. But if you're doing that, and then when you get into that email, you're also promoting the group, right? You're doing the same thing to where you're promoting the group from the email and the email from the group, right? And so it's always kind of a verb. Every time you get there, it's not like, oh, what are we looking at? It's like, what are we doing, right? You're going to be sending this in action, you know? Yeah. And so that's really going to get people looking at your stuff a lot more as they know that there's a little bit of fun and excitement behind it that way.
So you treat them totally independent of each other, email list and groups.
But you want to promote the email from the group and promote the group from the email, right? Yeah. Or whatever promotion you're doing. Yeah, you want to just make sure you're hitting it on all platforms so that there's something to see, there's somewhere else to go, somewhere to click to. Yeah,
I love that. So Dave, you talked about hypothesis and testing. Like you're trying to get something done. What are some of those things that you do on a daily level?
Yeah. Okay. So like, a lot of times when I'm posting on Facebook, like I'm not really posting like just like my main posts. I'm not posting so much for attracting the clients. I'm posting for overcoming an objection on a sales call. Right. So like, I mean, I know that there's really like 4 things I have to get somebody's mind to get through to get to my sale. So a lot of times, and it really goes to the biggest one is, like if they see that I can write, that's cool. That might bring them in. That might change the way they think about copywriting. But when they sit down to make that decision, and they're like, oh man, like I don't really care if this guy can write. Am I gonna get this return, right? Right. So I have to start to make sure that I can set up for my posts the different points I'm going to make to show them like these testimonials. They're not just 1 out of 10 people gets a testimonial, right? Because that's a big fear. It's like how many didn't get it, Yeah. So like just really being able to set up and direct traffic from those posts, that's really like a big one for me. Mm-hmm. And then trying to think some other ones like, okay, so a good thing that will help people like understand who their avatar is, right? Is like I'm wondering, I'm thinking that the people that you're talking about, they probably use the Facebook groups too a lot, right? Yeah. I mean, is that a common thing for the musicians? Yeah. So like if you're in a lot of groups and you see somebody that you really want to do business with, and you start writing about their fears and their desires, right? Just putting things in their perspective. Someone you don't know, but you can see a lot about them. Yeah. Eventually they're going to, your goal is to try to get them to message you. But you're going to start to realize like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot of people that have the same fears and desires. Right. Yeah. And then you start to realize that you're using an avatar the right way.
Interesting. So it's kind of like pull marketing. You're not pushing out me stuff. You're messaging out in order to pull them in. Like Seth Godin had talked.
There's someone who does it right, Seth Godin. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that question earlier. Someone who does it all right. Yeah, Seth Godin. Yeah, he's great.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
So when you talk about overcoming objections, something we're doing a lot of is monthly subscriptions for artists, to where there's reoccurring revenue every month. So artist knows, okay, we're going to $4,000 is going to come in every month. It's helpful, right? You're not just selling products one-off, trying to get more sales.
You get the reoccurring.
Yeah, reoccurring revenue. When you talk about overcoming objections, is that the same as a chain of beliefs for you? Like you have to get them to believe these.
Usually the chain of belief there. Yeah.
Okay.
So like that would be the root of the objection a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an objection is just why is somebody not signing up? That's an objection, right? And then when you pinpoint the reason, there's usually those beliefs behind it, right? Mm.
Yeah. So you really play devil's advocate in going, okay, if we are there to get subscriptions, you say, okay, why wouldn't somebody subscribe? Okay, I'm gonna become that avatar. You're actually putting yourself in the opposing view. right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And then you want to try to not just tell them why. Like a lot of times they've heard the reason why, but you really want to move on like one of those deeper levels, like emotionally move them to see a point that's going to kind of straighten that whole chain up, right?
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So like for instance, like okay, so like coaches, right? That's business coaches. That's someone who I target, and a lot of them feel like they want to be their own copywriter, right? A lot of them, they've gotten copywriters that they're not really like direct response. They're going to be putting things like I help X with Y by Z mechanism, and
Yeah.
you know that hasn't really gotten them what they want. So we have to show them like, hey, you got the logical argument is like you're going to be scaling your business. You don't have time. You need to let the pros do it. Focus on your thing. They've heard that, right? They still have the objection. So I'll go in, I'll give them like a free 15-minute lesson on copywriting. And I start talking about like the golden thread and proving the emotional benefit instead of the core complexes. And I'm talking about all these things naturally, like they should know it. And by the end of it, they're just like, holy crap, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Right.
Yeah.
Now they're not thinking I should be my own copywriter. Now they're seeing the value in it. Right.
Right.
So that works a lot better than actually like stating the objection and stating the argument.
Gotcha. So they're not even in the same universe. They're going, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about as far as copy.
Yeah, because they just think it's about structuring the sentences and stuff, and they don't realize there's direct response. Yeah.
So when you say direct response, what's the opposite of direct response? It's branded marketing.
There's different forms. I mean, there's direct response, and then there's something that's actually it comes out way different, but it's supposed to be built similar. Is a conversion copy. Conversion copy is like direct response, but only what's been done online. They don't look at anything else. Direct response kind of looks at everything and tests. And then there's a lot of different ones. There's like technical copy. There's content copy. So there's just you'll hear different names in front of a bunch of things. There's like probably like I don't know if there's even a set number. There's probably like 12 different kinds of copywriting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
I mean,
direct response is really so.
What I've heard, Dave, and see if this bears out for your experience, is most artists and marketers are in branded content. They're just talking about them and the widget, and isn't it great? And direct response is getting them to take an action.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So brand copywriting. Yeah. And it's brand copywriting is a very valid thing. And it's very, very strong and powerful. But yeah, direct response is where we're going to give you an emotional reason to take an action right now.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to know who you are as a brand. You have to know why you're different, and you have to get good at being you. Right.
Right.
But after that, after you've kind of got your ground game together in a sense, you have to have a call to action. You have to have an action you're wanting them to take. And that's where you live. That's where you live primarily. Is that right?
Yeah. Direct response. That's where it is. And I mean, they blend together a lot nowadays that we have, like companies that aren't 8-figure companies, that can hire one for every, everything. But direct response is definitely the bread and butter in my world. So,
yeah, I love that. So something we talk about internally is taking away their nose. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about in overcoming objections and chain of belief stuff, is like, we need to think about what their nose could be and rightfully, what they are. And we need to kind of preemptively take away their nose, take away their concerns, take away their doubts. That's kind of that's the same thing as what you're talking about in overcoming objections, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to give them the reason to buy, and then you want to clear all the possible reasons, any obstacle that's in the way of them buying. You want to clear it out of the way. Yeah. Give them the safest way possible to make that purchase.
Yeah. I love that. Good, man.
And that's why, like with I got to throw this in here, get on my soapbox for just a minute. That's why guarantee, like 300% guarantees and stuff like that. You're not really trying to sell with your guarantee. That actually weakens your position, especially over time. You want to use the guarantee, like what did I not cover in my copy, which is usually what is my offer lacking, right? And you want to make a guarantee that matches that. You're just trying to remove that last risk. You're not trying to pull them in with a 300% guarantee. You go like, okay, I got just about everything down. Like I'll give you 7 days with half your money back, right? Because I got a pretty dialed in offer, right? And the bigger your guarantee, you're stating there's more risk there, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're going 300% guarantee, it's like I don't really have my stuff together, so that's why I'm giving you 300%, and that's kind of how it works in the thing. So,
you're over guaranteeing because your offer is weak.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So Dave, how long have you been working in this field and studying this? I mean, this is a pretty specific, it's kind of mental negotiations in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how long, how'd you get into this?
Like, believe it or not, I got into it. I wrote my first radio commercial when I was 11, and got some conversions there. I really started doing full-time direct response. What's today? It's almost like to the date. It's like the 25th today, right? So on the 27th. Yeah. So in 2 days, it'll be 4 years I've been doing full-time.
No kidding. That's awesome. And what was your journey like prior to this? What did you do in between?
I did a lot of different things. I mean, I did a lot of marketing for chiropractors beforehand. I did a lot of stuff for my own, like for instance, selling baseball lessons when I was in high school. Right? I used to sell baseball lessons after school instead of getting a job. Or we did. I remember like it was about we did lawns. We started off just sweeping sidewalks and stuff when I was little, and it got up to doing like lawns and stuff when I was in junior high, and like things like that. So definitely a lot of like entrepreneurial things that were like just kind of sideways to make money. I guess like side hustles more than anything. Yeah. And then I started doing the fitness. I was a personal trainer, and that's really how I got into like the marketing world, was like doing the personal training, and then seeing I didn't know of it as copywriting. Like I was a writer and I liked doing the writing. I was studying it, but it was just like something about, it was always positioning to me. That's what it seemed like, and then when I finally figured out like what direct response was, it was just, I dropped fitness within a couple months. So
yeah, I love that. Great, Dave. So how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to, if somebody wants to talk to you about
definitely
stuff, what's the?
I mean, like you could always email me, which is just Dave at myimpossiblesolutions.com. Remember, it's My Impossible Solutions. The name Impossible Solutions was a $45,000 domain, so it's through the word "my" in there. But what was I gonna say? And then there's also same motorcycle. So if you go to myimpossiblesolutions.com/playbook, we got the organic playbook there, and we're going to be putting the opt-in page right in front of that too. But right now you can just go, you can click the button, you can fill out the email, and I'll have your email, or you could go ahead and get the package. There's a Facebook group for it, and so you could also go to the organic playbook on Facebook. It's Facebook group. So that's something
there, and we'll add some of those links in the copy below. But there's
right when you asked, all that things started happening around me. So
that's cool, man. That's something too. I mean, there's a lot of gobbledygook and horse shit in this space. Everybody's a marketer, and what I noticed with you is like your group, the stuff you're involved in is really kind of high value, low BS stuff. It's really, it's almost inspiring in a way. Like I feel, and I don't know, maybe you're doing some of that reverse negotiations with me. You probably are, but I mean, it's like when I read your stuff, it's like, damn, that's good shit right there. Whether, I need it or not, it's like what you're doing is well done. So I applaud you for that. You're great at what you do. So, I
appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Dave, tell me, let's talk a little bit about some of the people you work with, and you can drop names or not drop names, but like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, for on the tech side, we got, AIM Social Solutions. They're a pretty decent sized company. They're really good with the tech stuff. So they're doing all the systems for me. On our main offer where we scale coaches, we got like the systems marketing mindset, right? So they're doing the systems, they're teaching the systems, they're fulfilling with it, and they're solid guys. They're easy to talk to. They know how to make things really simple for on the breakdowns to where it's really easy to understand. So I really like working with them. And then we got on the mindset coaching side, we got Zach Paul. He's a ex-Navy SEAL. He made it through BUD/S. He was in the Navy SEAL before he ever went out and actually deployed. He got hit by a car, right? And lost a lot of function in his brain. And he just, kind of Navy SEAL attitude, became obsessed with fixing his mind with his mind. And he learned everything he could. And now he's got this just amazing mindset program. Just knows how to get results for people, like incredibly deep results. So working with
great.
those two guys, it's been great. Yeah. So, I mean, really getting that full package and really surrounding myself with people that I admire on both sides. Right. So it's always like going to work, trying to do your A game, trying to keep up. Right.
Right. So with the Navy SEAL guy, you're handling his positioning and copy for him. Right?
Well, so we're actually, we have, so I started helping him with his lead gen. Right. And that's how we were kind of connecting. We're both in a mindset program together. And I don't know, I really admired some of the stuff he was doing as far as the results he was getting. And we had that opening for this offer. It's actually a combo offer, right? So invited him to join the offer. So, I mean, so far working out pretty well. So
that's great, man. Awesome. Well, Dave, thanks again for carving out some time. I know you're busy and your days are packed. So thank you for jumping on and talking to myself and our viewers at Hacking Music. I appreciate it, Dave.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Dave. Thanks so much.
All right, see you, Dave.